apologize for the slow start. It was like Update Tuesday, which I guess is a thing, Patch Tuesday or whatever. Looks like Twitch might be there. So far, so good. Alright, so. Actually, hold on. Twitch just burped on my PC. And while Twitch is doing it, let me get the lights. Okay, so this week is going to be text resources, or resources, which arguably isn't a classic design pattern. So even if I try to Google it, right, like if you typed in factory pattern, it'd be a slew of things. If I do a text resource design pattern. Not really so much, right? So, this requires a little bit of explanation. Yeah. We've gone rogue. So, in .NET, especially in NVC, people like to do string resources. Maybe a better name for this would have been string resources. But trust me, bear with me. The idea in NVC is that for localization primarily, you want to be able to load different resources based off of the culture. Whether it's English or Spanish or whatever have you. Yeah, Smudge says, not sure it's conceived as a design pattern, but there maybe several patterns involve resolving embedded resources. Absolutely, right? So we have gone a little bit rogue. And the reason for that is, I'm coming to our MUDZ game. We've done factory, strategy, bridge, command, state, flyweight, adapter, interpreter, singleton, chain of responsibility, and we haven't done decorator yet. There's a question about the value add of decorator in the game, and I didn't want to force a hammer and nail scenario where we just made up things to do, because the game's getting reasonably complex, and doing things like that kind of whimsical introduction of architecture this late in the game, could be problematic. So, let me close out this guy. If I come back into our game, what we do see a whole lot of are this red text, right? These string literals, which aren't bad, but they aren't great. And they're everywhere. They're in our base actor. They're pretty much any place that we want to send information back to the client. We're doing so with these kind of nice, user-friendly strings, which is great, because it's what we need. But the task of centralizing that into kind of a localization approach, this would be untenable. I wouldn't be able to say, okay, well, here, if it's Spanish, do this. If it is Norwegian, do this. It would be a maintenance nightmare, right? So we're kind of off the rails in the sense that there's not going to be a kind of nice, neat design pattern we can look at. It's more of an approach, but it's one that once you refine it down, whether it be a COD or anything else, It's going to be your design pattern, right? It's going to be something that you use over and over and over again. I promise you. And the reason why we're not looking at any of the .NET baked-in approaches for this is because we want to understand the benefits from the ground up, and we also want to prepare ourselves for this world without Visual Studio, right? So we want to be able to do these things like in Visual Studio Code, in Sublime Text. Once we are able to code in different environments for people that don't have Visual Studio as an option or don't like it, but still want to code C#, I think that this is going to be one of the missing pieces for how we can take everything we've learned so far, and just what we've learned so far, and be able to tackle not just this, but a bunch of projects. So this is definitely Smudge. You got me. Smudge says, you should try not to read mid-flow. I'm very good at putting you off of what you're saying. So every time I hiccup, you can tell that I'm trying to digest chat. All right, let's try to better ourselves with that for this stream. So, how am I going to do that? Well, I'll check chat every 5 minutes or so. How about that? And I won't even look over there. It's very tempting, but I won't even look. All right. So, how do we do that? How do we take all these things and put them into a place where they can be gotten very easily? It turns out it's not super hard. We have our domain logic. We've got common, right? We have our domains. Everything's split up very nicely. And so this is also kind of a proof that we can do design. We can do our own design patterns, right? We're in control. So if I do localization, and if you consider everything that an app should have, logging would be one, localization would be another. Two things that we don't have. So there's a bunch of things that we really want to add to our toolbox. So I'm inside of localization, and I'm going to do a new class. And I'm just going to call it, I'll call it text resource. Just in case we want to expand it later. I don't know why we'd ever need images in a localization strategy, but there could be some other things I'm not really thinking about right now. So we're going to be explicit here. I'm going to say this one's a text resource. And I think Smudge is pinging me on GitHub. I didn't look at chat. I didn't break my own rules, but I did look at my Microsoft band as the update came in. Whew! I'm like a guy cheating on my diet right now. Make all these rules for myself and then immediately find all the loopholes. Okay, so what do I want here? Well, really all I want is a public string called culture. I can get set. I want something more strongly typed, but it's going to be text resource name. So I can get and set. Public string. Let me just call this content. This is really all I want here. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and strongly type that resource name, though. Name or names? I think we're doing names because we got types everywhere. All right, so if we go into like things like actor gender types, we just have this serializable, right? We want to be consistent with how we're employing these things. We want to make this public. Okay. Now, I think another part of the game, if I remember correctly, we were doing, yeah, this pattern, right? This, which definitely could be improved. So let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So what we're missing here is both an equals override and a get hash code override to really finish off this approach. So do you want to use enums, or do we want to use this pattern? I'll tell you why this pattern comes in handy. It's much easier to feed data into this from a database, especially in a code first kind of style. I'll tell you what. Let's go enum for now because we are lazy. But let's put a red flag out there that we really need to standardize and be consistent with our strongly typed enum approach. All right, so go over, and we're just going to keep adding these as we find them. So cannot respond. There's going to be a lot of them. I should warn you that now. And I think that when we see how many of them there are, it's going to be pretty clear why they're going to be so important. Oops. What am I doing? Man, I was mixing patterns already. All right, let's just call that 1. So all we're doing is we're setting our equals to 1, saying this is where the enum count should start. I'm not looking at chat. I'm not. I'm looking at the clock to see when I can look at chat. All right. So, why do I have room, player, and target message? Well, I did a little bit of refactoring behind the scenes. I should probably check that in now. We'll wait. So, let's go ahead and play the game so I can kind of show what I did. Not a whole lot, but I changed this so that we were returning back room message, player message, and I tried to differentiate that on the client. So in our client, on our render strategy, use TBC, render strategy, I'm doing this decide message. I'm doing some checks, and they're messy because it was quick and it was late and I was tired. But I'm doing these checks, and depending on what it is how I'm going to be displaying the message to the user. Because there was another little refactor in our little easy TCP client where I'm broadcasting all messages to all players, and then they decide what to do with them, right? So before we critique that, because I think the whole TCP server thing might be our next big project. So I'm hoping it limps along long enough. Man, if English is not your first language, you cringed at that sentence. So here I am, and I say my name is Gary, and it says welcome back, right? So I'm getting my responses from the client. I'm logged in. Let's come back over here to our CLI. Let's go and open the folder and go into the bin and debug. Let's open up another instance. So now I've got 2 players. I say Beth, right? So I saw some bugs, right? Like, because you can see that, like they both refreshed, right? Because they're both getting the message, and it should be smart enough to know who's doing what, but it's not quite there yet. But if I say fight Carl, all right. So in one window, this does work, and this is super fun. In one window, I get you attack Carl because I put in the action. In the other window, I get Gary attacks Carl. So that's why I need these messages, right? So I need a player message. So when I commit the action, what do I get to read? I need another message for everybody else in the room that gets to see that action. And then I need one for the target, right? So it's a good difference between Gary attacks Carl, Gary attacks you, and you attack Carl. 3 different messages. And I've earned my chat. Hang on, I'm looking at chat because I earned it. Yeah, Smudge is a great point about using room key quality compare. That's part of it. I'm going to get to that. I will. I promise you. And the reason I'm not using that yet is because we didn't really dedicate enough time. I think it was a great submission. I'm talking about one that Smudge made to the code base, and just haven't really taken the time to deep dive into it, explain it, and then just like we're talking about sanitizing the code and getting everything looking very consistent, that's going to be a big part of it. And then also, out of curiosity, why not use the embedded resource system? Not a dig. There can be some reasons, just wondering. Right, so it goes back to the this idea of we're writing this code, we're writing code that we could really just use if we were on Notepad, right? That we could follow these patterns in a very kind of simple way and not relying too much on the IDE magic. So we'd be explaining a lot more about Visual Studio and the resource system than we would be about the problems it fixes and the implementation and being able to follow every bit of code we write. Is that a great reason? I hope so, but it might not be. So we'll see. All right. Oh, and I guess the other thing I'll say is, since this is really kind of come together as a class format in the long run, I would love to get like this good set of design patterns and such, and be able to say, okay, here are the 10 things that you can have katas for and you can run through, and with these 10 things, here are the myriad of applications you can make. So part of this is kind of a test, and so we might come back and say, the resource system is the way to go. Or we might come back and we might say, okay, I know enough about text resources that I can implement them in other languages, in other environments where I don't have that resource system. So this is basically what we're looking at here with text resources. All these things that are messages, I'm going to have 3 of each. Again, 1 for the target, 1 for the player, 1 for the room. Right? That's 3 of each message. And I don't want all those strings randomly attached to wherever the results are generated in code. So, let's go and stop that guy. Oh my goodness, you guys see what games are in my library. Where's the privacy these days? Where's the privacy? Okay, so, and we already have 3 here. One starts at 1, so if we got the primitive type of this, it would be 2, and this would be 3. So let's go back over. Not enough stamina. There's another good one. Okay. Room message. Player message. Target message. Alright, so that's our 3. Oh, I don't need that one. Hang on. Alright, so here are my main actions in the game. Fight, repair, negotiate, and heal. I can do those from memory. Fight, room message, fight, player message, fight, target message, heal, room message. I bet I know a better way of doing this. Woo! Hang on. Cool your jets. Somebody in there has beat me to it. Just cool your jets. No. What is the shortcut? Oh my goodness, I knew this not even that long ago. The multi-line select, oh my goodness, I just did it and I forget it every time. It's like the worst thing. Is it AltShift? Did I do it? AltShift? Look at that. AltShift on the keyboard, folks. AltShift and down. Negotiate. All right. Heal, repair, negotiate. And what else do we have? We've got inspect and look around, I think. What do I keep pressing over here? So inspect. Man, my fingers are not in the right places. We'll just say look around, right? Alright. So a little bit of debate in chat about how to do the prefixing command. You know what? And I wonder if it's got if my resharper bindings are getting in the way there. I don't think so, but so far for me, AltShift works. Shift by itself is going to do, everything. AltShift just does where I want it to be. I'm keeping these shortcut conflicts. I'm not going to fix it yet, but just know that resharper is definitely butting its nose in where it doesn't belong. Okay, so presumably I've got just a lot, right? Just count it up if you like, but we've got a lot of messages. And these aren't all of them. We've got a welcome message as well, right? And this is like, so when I log in, I want, the room to see that I entered into the game. And I might even add one more to all these, right? Like, maybe like a world message? Yeah. All right, I've run my chat. I've run my chat peruse. All right, so Smudge says, look at some of the stuff you're talking about here might be leading to better abstractions and DI. It will. You are absolutely correct. And can we examine one instance of a room target and player message? Because I think you should be able to do these with templating and a strategy pattern. Feeling that you can use two enums, one for target and one for resource key. In essence, normalizing this enum. If I think I'm following you, and I think that would work. Maybe not two enums, but I definitely see how it could work. So there's the reason why I'm not going to do that, and I might change my mind, it might refactor the whole thing out. But the reason why I don't want to do that is because that is, it's kind of specializing to our problem. It's an easy out, right? And so I'll make this wager with everyone. This will either work sufficiently, or we'll learn enough about the pattern to recognize it either an anti-pattern or why it doesn't quite make the best fit for this implementation. So we'll wrap that into kind of like the learning experience. Either way, we're gonna have a fun time analyzing the code, and once we see it in there, right? It's like, well, it's a rectangle in a square hole. So it's not quite wrong, but we got to shave things here and there to make it fit. Let's just go with something that's a more appropriate pattern, or we'll say, wow, that's great. But I will, since we're looking at this, and I think as far as the templating pattern, the idea there being that a room message or a player message or a target, if I'm hearing this all correctly, should definitely follow a consistency, right? So we can always say, well, if it's a room message template, then we know what to pass in, and we can do our signatures and our checks and our tests accordingly. If we don't have that template, then how do we know when, where, and why a random string is going to be using what parameter? So, yeah, it's going to be good. You ever get that tingle like you know something's going to be good? This is going to be good. Because inside of our text resource pattern, we might be able to use templating as well. Ooh, we'll see. Alright, so I got all these messages. And then I've got a text resource class, which has the culture, text resource name, and the content. So, we aren't using a database. And we aren't going to be loading from the file system. So this is if we were using the resource mechanisms built in, then we'd be going into loading up either whatever file we create that has these resources in it, and we'd be using those. We're not. We're going to go super lowbrow, kind of. And we're going to go ahead and create a new solution. A new folder. Oh wait, do I already have a... Hang on. Okay. A presentation, I got domain logic. Call this data. A new project. I'm going to be a class library. Okay. So I got my data project. Delete that guy. I'm going to add a new folder called domain. Right? So I'm looking here, I got localization. I'm going to add a new folder called localization. Okay. And so I got text resources. I'm going to say add new item. And I'm going to call it text resources repository. This is going to be just like before when we, at the end of our last semester, we kind of had the interpreter and the adapter, and we just kind of paid them lip service, and then we came back and really deep dived at a later date. This is going to be the same thing when we talk about repositories, and then also maybe later on a unit of work. Okay, so let's do a public static class here, and public IEnumerable of text resource. Oh, I don't know what that is yet. So my data project, I need to add a reference to my common. Alright, so out of my, I want to do a text resource. I just want to do get resources. Oh, yeah, you are correct. Be sharper. Okay, so I can cheat here. So in this space, as your repository, you could do a database call. You could listen from the I/O. You could do whatever you want to, right? Because this is your data tier. We're just gonna write these things in line because we can. But since we're going off of the idea of we can create this API, so no matter whatever this does, it's inconsequential to the rest of the game. And we could also do a public static dictionary as a string. And an IEnumerable of text resources. And we could say, we want to do it that way? Resources by culture. Yeah. No. We'll just do it. It'd be fun, but it'd be weird. Have I earned a chat look yet? We only got 20 minutes left in the we only got 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep everything to 45 minutes. We got 20 minutes left. There's so many questions. I picked this a controversial topic, and I might not have given myself enough time. This might be a 2-weeker. All right, I'm gonna give myself another minute, and then I'm gonna look at chat. Okay, so we've opened up a can of worms. We really have. We've gone rogue. We've decided that we really want to clean up all of these strings throughout our application and put them in one place, right? And we're calling that this text resource approach or string resource approach. And in order to do that, we've had to really discuss the best approach and the best design patterns to implement that, and to also stick those things somewhere. So I think we're really covering a gap in the application where it's all good and fine, but how do you deal with data? And our first bit of data is kind of handed to us that we have all these strings we need to put someplace. We want to solve that problem. And by solving the problem of where do we get our data from, we'll have another tool. We'll be like, oh, whenever so I know these design patterns, but I've got no idea how to interface with data. How do I do that? I've earned myself a chat break. Hang on, let's catch up. Yeah, Smudge says that hard coding resources and config isn't bad wrong, so long as the consumers of which remain abstract from the source. Completely agree. Attorney Masterbot says, are you starting Entity Framework? I am not. That thing is and for anybody who doesn't know, Entity Framework is the ORM that's baked into the .NET stack. It's wonderful, but it is a crutch and a liability, right? So we kind of want to keep things pretty grassroots around these parts, as far as again, being able to code with as few dependencies as possible. Like we're just using our code, right? No monolithic frameworks. We're doing everything from the ground up. Yeah, seems to be skipping any IO-based repo for now. Definitely, I want to keep things, you know, easy and accessible. Remember, this is supposed to be a course or a something that beginners can follow from start to from the very first week to where we are now. And so, what I don't want to do is throw people off a cliff where they've got to start really understanding any framework or messing with things they don't understand. If we can't start with one brick and build a house, then we're just not gonna build it, right? Does that make sense? That's a weird analogy. If we can't build with the tools we have and no one understand, we're not going to do it. All right. Always hard to tell if Area Ugu is leading us down the path of mistake to better demonstrate the resolutions, and we just jump the gun. You know, that puts the idea that I might be doing mistakes, just to show the folly later on, puts me in a great position where I can really throw whatever I want on the screen and just pretend I knew what I was doing the entire time. So yes, that's what I'm doing. All right, so yeah. So Turniebot and both Smudge make great points that if you're committed to the .NET stack, and that EF is most certainly, they make it very accessible, and the starter projects make it very easy to use. Something you should definitely get your hands dirty with right away. If you need an ORM, I can't recommend that one enough. Don't avoid it. Yeah. So Smudge says that doesn't really belong in the series. Yeah, again, so it's a thin kind of line to walk here, where we want everything to be accessible. We want people to learn the best strategies and practices, but we also don't want to get stuck in, like, I don't even know what, configuration nightmares, things that are just way deep in the weeds of the IDE, and like we wrote the TCP client and server from scratch, right? We don't really look at it a whole lot, but we want to eventually. And by looking at it, we'll be able to really question why things are done a certain way with the TCP protocol. Whereas if we use WCF, which is absolutely the right approach, don't roll your own, right? Use WCF, run it headless, run it however you want, do the configuration. But if we implemented that now, it would be such a time suck, as far as, I apologize for the language if that's bad, but it would be such a hole to run down. You'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to do it this way, but ignore Y. Ignore the Y. Ignore the Y. I don't want to say that. So, okay, and I got 15 minutes left, so let's get back to the action. Okay, so at its bare necessities, I need a way to get that data, and I need an abstraction, a little contract for how it should look. So for the text resource, I'm saying it's just going to be a culture, which is a string. It's going to be a text resource name, which we have those now as an enum. And we have the content. So, for this guy, and it's going to look messy. It really is. And we're going to, by going through this little pane, we should definitely start to ask ourselves, what's the better way to do this, right? Like, but we're going to do it, and we're going to see where it gets us. I completely agree in chat. I think it was Smudge that was saying that it's really hard to put aside your best practices and not just go with what you know. But we're going to. So, var resources is equal to new list of text resource. Ready for this? Okay. Oops. So, let's go to the names. Do 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 do. So the culture is English US, and the content is equal to whatever. We need to have 3 of these for each one. Smudge says, I see you reading chat. Smudge, I'll tell you what, I see you seeing me reading chat, so deal with that. Yes, Smudge says that it should be singular for text resource names. Absolutely agree. We've got, again, this mix match of approaches, right, that we see here, and we've got just a bunch of things to clean up, and we want to, right? But now that we're dealing with this giant enum, it's going to be a great time to kind of look back and say, what are we really doing with our enum pattern? Are we doing this crazy thing, or are we sticking with regular enums? How are we naming them? Et cetera, et cetera. So, but back to the pain point at hand. All right. So, you're going to say to yourself, well, if I need 3 messages for each one of these things, right? So it's going to look just like this in terms of us writing it out. It's going to be a lot of code, and you're going to naturally ask yourself, what's the better way to do this? And there is a better way. It's called using a database. Okay. And just to make ourselves let's give ourselves a little bit of a cheat here, so we can fill these things in. It's just the wisdom of data entry, right? So this kind of works so far, ish. We'll keep going until we've got like 5 minutes left, and then I'll go ahead and implement it. And we're just going to look at it. And then tomorrow we're going to keep looking at it. And if we hate it, this is going to be the best part of this whole experiment. If we hate it and we want to change it, then we will have already abstracted out, and I can't stress this enough, these things. This red text everywhere. Just the process of getting all of this text out of our game into one place makes it something that can be refactored. Right now, it is such a windy, entrenched problem that we can't even fix it. We need to abstract it first. So we're abstracting it first into an approach that makes some sense, and then we're going to criticize the approach. We're going to criticize the approach independent of the implementation. That's exactly what we've been trying to do with every design pattern. We constantly said, You want to decouple. We want to abstract out the problem that we're trying to solve into this siloed design pattern that we can critique as its own. Right? So right now it's just, man, it's just in there. So this is just the process of getting it out. And it can be painful. But don't be afraid of being wrong. Right? Right now we are less wrong than we were 30 minutes ago. And less wrong is better. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that says that. It's just gonna say less wrong, and I'm gonna wear it around so proud to everywhere I go. Smudge asks, "Can I paste some code to reflect this?" Yeah, I don't think anybody in chat's gonna mind. Just don't paste like 14 pages, or maybe explain what you want to paste first. But if it's sensible, then I think everybody's going to appreciate it. All right. So not enough stamina, and I'll try to do the same kind of stuff I do here. Enough stamina, player message. Oops. I only want 3 of these. I'm going to break this and this. This is the guy I want to copy over and over again to kind of keep myself sane as I'm doing this. Not enough stamina. Target message. Alright. And then for this, I'm just going to say ControlCasey to comment it out. It's I'm sure everybody has their own shortcuts and such to make this kind of work easier, but this is the way I'll be using it. Alright, so let's go back in the base actor, and these are pretty easy. Cannot respond, has a room message, oops, has a room message, and it has a player message. And if you've ever seen it in a game, and these are, or any piece of software that where like, I think these are pretty popular, where you're looking at a wall and where there should be a graphic or a texture, there's just a to-do piece of text that says like, to do, Rob, add texture. That's exactly what we're going to do with the target name right here, where it's going to be like, well, it should never get here. Right? So we can leave it blank. Is it the safest thing? I think it might be. But typically, in your text resources, if you're doing things like parts of a web page, and you're saying, hey, I'm doing everything in English US, but if it was English ES, right? I'm sorry. Or like ES, whatever the Spanish one is. Like I'm just dropping my brain out thinking about it. But if it was in a different language and you just had a placeholder text there that was like Rob translate, like these are the kind of like just silly bugs that will make their way into your code. Just like little to-do placeholder stuff, little lipsum stuff. All right, so I guarantee we're gonna make that mistake at some point, but we'll leave it blank for now. Not enough stamina. All right, we're getting to the 1 minute mark. Oops, not there. Is it here? There's the room message. And then you really kind of question things like, does the room need to know that I don't have enough stamina? Okay, so I'm going to keep this here for my ease, right? Because then I'm just going to, remember I did a ControlCasey to comment it. and then I would just comment it again. I'm sorry, I would just copy it again. And then I would hit a Control-K-U-C, or Control-K-U? Hang on, let's try that again. Control-K-C, Control-K-U. Yes. So we can comment and uncomment bulks of things. And now I'm ready to continue my journey of I'm trying to put them in the same order. So fight room message. Another cool thing is that if I just type a capital F and a capital P, that's what I want next. So capital P, it'll go right to it. And then I can hit tab. So that capital FP lets me kind of cheat a little bit. And so just to show you, I also want the target, so I can do Shift dot capital FT, takes me right to it, right? Little shortcuts. So, and then I'm going to say fight. Okay, so I probably won't pop with that one yet because we got 4 minutes. Actually, I was 3 minutes late, so we'll go over by just those 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so what does this buy us? Well, when I'm in the base actor, my repository is static, right? So it's pretty safe to use wherever I need the repository. So I got these resources. And I can do a little link statement on it. I'm going to tidy this up, but I think it's going to be good just to kind of show the problem we're facing, right? Because again, first up is to get everything out, and then to evaluate the approach. I don't know. Tommy Two-Toe says, those shortcuts are ReSharper specific. Oh. Wait, Smudge clarifies, the KC and KU, the uncomments and comments, are VS. The capital IntelliSense shortcuts are ReSharper. Yes. Man. So I do apologize. I think I've said a couple of times that ReSharper is the one tool that I'm using that's not baked in. It really is that. It really is that critical. So yeah, I apologize. That's gonna be a point of confusion. I do kind of refuse to bend because it's so good. You should know, this is going to be a plug for JetBrains, the folks that make ReSharper. If you have, you can get a discount for an academic license. I think it's pretty cheap. I don't know exactly what it is. And if you have an open source project, you can submit to them, and they will give you free licenses for open source projects. So, if you like it, you can check it out. Okay, so let's just go up here and see what we have. So, inside of my core, which is where I am with my base actor, I want to add a reference to my data. Right? And so, if I was up here and it said data, domain, localization, text resource repository, get resources, where x dot text resource name equals text resource names dot cannot respond room message dot, oops, sorry, I actually want this one to be first, content. Holy bananas, that is a long thing, right? Just this is so long. So what I want to do want to do a kind of a helper for this. Go back to our repository. Is this the right place for a helper method? It might not be. Alright, so let's do dictionary, text, resource names. Let's do, let's just do a string for this. Let's actually make this one. Right? So, and then down here we need to do a return get resources dot where x dot culture dot equals culture. Oops. Random culture in that case. Alright, so then we're going to do a to dictionary here. Boom, 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 boom. Whoa. Smudge says we can't see the right side or the bottom of the window. Well, that doesn't help. Grumble, grumble. I just looked over. Yeah, you got like a very... Man. Oh, that's a shame. Well, I'll fix it by tomorrow, but you guys are seeing all kinds of weirdness. Huh. Well, you always, whenever you don't change anything and things are weird, ghosts in the machines. But I did do an update, so that's probably what did it. Shouldn't have, but I bet it did. Alright, so we're getting in the last 2 minutes here, so, that's fine. Alright, so tomorrow's going to be an interesting class when you see all the things that you couldn't see last time. Alright, so, we want to do a dictionary here, because what we want to do is, eventually we want to pass in the culture, right? And this is going to be Smudge's favorite stuff about dependency injection. That's going to be definitely something that we don't want to worry about ourselves. But we want to replace this big line of code with data.domain.localization. So here's where we're going to pass in that ENUS. But it's a dictionary, so we get to pass it in this key. So it saves us a bit, and let's go ahead and clean, just so that's kind of superfluous right there. Oops. Oh, hang on. Let's get into the end of the stream and I'm losing my mind. Okay. So now that I did that, I can go ahead and get rid of this and this. So which one? I think this one ends up being easier to read-ish. Right? Okay, so let's burn this guy away. Alright, so cannot respond. I want to replace this with this, and this with this. Okay, So let's go ahead and move this screen down a little bit so we can kind of look at, I'm sorry, up. All right, so here's what we want to see. Red text is gone. We've got a central way to get our resources into our game. It's going to be consistent wherever we call it. All right, if we ever want to expand it or change it, we want to change it in one place to affect everything. And if we wanted to write our game in Spanish, all we'd have to do is translate it. Translate it, change the culture, and suddenly your entire game is in Spanish. Right? So, again, went a little bit rogue on the idea of a design pattern, but it's such a I'm gonna say it's such a great thing. If you're doing websites, if you're doing applications, doing this up front and saying, okay, if anything needs I've called it text resource for so long. So if anything needs a text resource or a string resource, this is our centralized strategy for providing that, and it's going to save you who knows how much time and belly aching. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there to kind of satisfy the 45-minute idea. Tomorrow we're going to jump right back in. I might do some behind the scenes, just data entry. But we're going to go through and we're going to, once we have it all implemented, then we're going to step back and we're going to look at the pattern that we created. And we're going to critique it. We've got a bunch of great ideas out there. We've got use a template, right? Use a strategy. We've got well, yeah, I guess those are the two that come to mind right now. But there's all kinds of different ways to go about the actual implementation once we've been able to abstract the pattern out and centralize it into one place. All right. I'm going to catch up on chat. I'm going to go ahead and commit this guy. Oh, wait. It's going to be wonky. Do I want to finish this up right now? Is culture. Next, whoa. My fingers just went cray-cray. Wait, what am I missing here? Hang on. I've had the repo is out of date. Let me see those commits. Hang on. Why am I having such a brain? Man, they definitely say that doing things live kills the old brain. Yeah, that's what I thought. Is it giving me like grief because I didn't list it? That's crazy. Okay. So I didn't list it. I think we're all learning something here. I don't know why I thought that I'd be able to. I guess that makes sense. This isn't anything yet, right? So I've got to turn it into something before I can dictionary it. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know what this is, so I can't turn it into anything else. You can't turn nothing into something. Make it something first. Okay, so I want the key to be the name, and I want the value to be the content. Cool. All right. A little brain fart, but yes, turn the IEnumerable into something and then to dictionary it. Okay. Yes, it builds because you and I are just that good. Holy tomato. You can barely see me. What? Alright, that's incredible. Alright, so, 2 things to fix tomorrow. The atrocious lighting in here, and also the screen resolution. 2 things that I thought were fine before, which have, what did it say, gremlins? Yeah, the gremlins came in the middle of the night and did all kinds of things. Okay, so I'm going to catch up on chat, and then I'm going to bid you all adieu until tomorrow. Yeah, look at all this. Man. Yeah, I know. I did some after-hour refactors. It's not as bad as it looks, I promise. Alright. I think everything's in here. Alright, so everything's out there in the repo now. Let me catch up on chat. Okay, yeah, so definitely you guys, Smudge has been great about being active in GitHub. It's definitely an underutilized part of the stream as far as, like, it's definitely a part of your DevOps toolbox is being able to handle these things. So definitely feel free to come in, add issues, force me to be honest. Yeah, see, Smudge has its IEnumerable you don't need, but maybe my IntelliSense was just, that's what I thought, maybe my IntelliSense was just not. Yeah, alright, so as expected, alright. So I retract my assumption as to why it wasn't working before. My IntelliSense was just taking a time to pop up, which is just shows how just dependent I am. Like, as soon as it doesn't pop up, I assume I'm wrong and start making up all these reasons as to why. Alright. I won't commit that. But tomorrow, like I said, we'll deep dive and make everything this way, and then we'll take a step back and see about our implementation. And I'll have to appease Smudge. All right. Well, thanks everybody for. Oh. Incredible. All right. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll pick up where we left off. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks for the great comments. I am looking forward to really tackling this one. I think it's going to be like a really, really good one. As far as, if you've been watching along so far, you've got a bunch of design patterns, and I think even though this isn't a classical design pattern, or it might not even be technically a design pattern at all, but it's such a great thing to have in your toolbox, and it's going to save you so much time that I'm glad we're doing it. So we'll see how far it gets us tomorrow, and I will process all the chat comments and try to be ready for you in 24 hours. All right. Thanks everybody again on the